afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode, a live episode of Teachers for Teachers. That's right, that's you, moms and dads. I'm Dr. Dejana, and I'm here with Dr. Leah, and today we're going to have a little fun with math. Let's talk about math, Leah. What do you say?
Well, I am really excited about this topic for a couple of reasons. I grew up with the math phobia. Like, I'm not good at math. I can't do math. And then went back to school at 100 years old and ended up loving statistics and really getting into it. And at some point, the professor said, to a couple of other students, well, if you're struggling with that, sit with Leah. She's kind of, and I was like, really? And I got to graduate school and was like suddenly it's having a relevance, right? In those early years for me, math did not have a relevance. It was a lot of numbers dancing around on a page, and then later when it meant something, it was a little bit easier. How about you, Dejana?
I agree. So I always thought I wasn't good at math. And I think I could say that I had a math phobia too. And it wasn't until I became a scientist and working as a graduate student that I really fell in love and realized that my love of science can be explained and described by math. And then it became a whole nother subject to me because I found the power in telling my scientific story through numbers. And that connect for me, unfortunately, didn't happen until I was in graduate school. But now I think we're kind of at the place where we recognized that this is an issue, and we need to really figure out how we can tell children that math is another way of telling a story, right?
And that it is a great equalizer. Around the world, math is an important language, and math is the underlying language of music. There's so many things that we love in our life that have math as the equation. Dejana, do you want to introduce our guests?
Absolutely. So again, we have a five-star quality guest. I want to welcome and introduce Tim Griffin. Welcome to the show again. Tim is a retired STEAM teacher, an award-winning singer, songwriter, and storyteller. The founding director of Griffin Ed, a nonprofit team of educators and musicians dedicated to raising academic achievement in STEM and other subjects through fun educational music. The Griffin Ed website is a free online library of, it says geeky, but I would say fascinating and amazing songs that are searchable by grade level and content subject. We really do help kids do better in school. We're so happy to have Tim and welcome him to the conversation.
It's my privilege to be here.
Awesome. I also want to introduce and welcome Anne McMullen. Thank you so much for being here again. Anne is an education consultant based in Los Angeles, California, who works throughout the entire United States and internationally as a public speaker, writer, consultant. All of her work is focused on leadership. She's also the acclaimed author of Life Lessons in Leadership. Anne is a speaker not only here in the state, nationally, but at international conferences. She currently serves as project director of COSIN's Empowered Superintendents Program. Let's welcome Anne to the show as well. So glad to have both of you guys here and really looking forward to your contribution to this conversation about math and math phobia. What's that all about? What do you do when you talk to somebody and just show them a few numbers? It could be like 2 and 7, and they're, I don't really do math. What do you guys have to say about that?
Anne, you want to go first?
Yeah, I will, because Tim, I want to hear what you have to say, so I'm going to be quick and then do that. But I think you have to zoom in, Dejana, on and find somebody's interest and present it in a way that makes sense to them. I was not a math teacher, I was a social studies teacher, but we dealt a lot with dates and numbers and that sort of thing in that as well. And I just think you have to find a way to connect. And I think some of our children's shows from back when, like Sesame Street and so forth, gave us good lessons on how to maybe put math to music and then make it fun, or dance, or do something like that. So I just think we have to not assume that it is awful and make it fun.
Tim, how about you?
Well, Thinking back to when I was a kid, the times I struggled with math was when it was being taught as an abstract thing that existed all by itself in a vacuum. And I think one reason that happens is that most math teachers are people who love math. And so they see it as intrinsically fascinating, and they tend to want to share it in that way with the kids. And also, they've got a whole lot of ground to cover. So there isn't really enough time spent, I think, on context. What is this for? Now, for me, I was really into model rocketry with my dad. And I didn't see the connection between that and the math until I got to physics. I remember struggling with things like trigonometry and math functions and so on, and algebra. But then once I was in physics and we're doing, oh, wait a minute, you can use this stuff to make a very specific plan for the rocket that you build, so you can launch it, so it can go up to this height at this kind of a vector. This is how we put things into orbit. So the difference between just launching something that goes up and then comes down and blows up, and actually putting something into orbit around the Earth or Mars or the moon, or landing it somewhere, that's what math lets us do. Math is empowering. It lets us take everything we do and make it better and more powerful. Everything from mixing cocktails to making pancakes, baking bread. Anyone can do all these things. You don't really need math to do that stuff. But if you want the bread to be something you're going to want to eat, and if you want to be able to take notes on this new recipe that you tried so that you can get the same thing again when you like what you got, that's where math becomes the tool that you can use to take anything you do to the next level. So I would say for parents, the number one thing that I would urge you to take away is that math is all about the stuff you can do with it. It's not about learning the times tables, although you got to do that still. It's important. But only because here's what we're going to do with that stuff.
You make a really interesting point on this. And it sort of harkens back to a conversation we had a few weeks ago about individualized learning. Because if you can find what the child's interest is, then all of these other things become part of them jumping down into the rabbit hole to find out as much as they can about what they're interested in. And it is one of the things that distance learning allows more of, because it's not trying to teach to 30 kids in front of you. It's really trying to supervise the education of someone who's finding their interest and their passion and learning all about it.
Yeah, I've got two nephews who live with us, and they're really into sports. And so for them, I show them, okay, well, let's talk about basketball. You know how much math there is in that? Or baseball, how do we get batting averages? Yeah. That's long division with decimals. And anyone can learn to do it, but if you want to actually, apply it, or, with kids, all kids who are into sports, I think, need to see the movie Moneyball. Has anyone seen that? Where it's about using math to make intelligent decisions about who they're going to get on their baseball team, and it just works. That's the thing about math. It really works.
Lee, I was thinking a couple of things while Tim was talking. One is, I think part of the challenge and what gives math the bad rap is that we look at math as a worksheet item, and everything that Tim has talked about is not something on a worksheet where I've got to answer questions and do that. One of the things I've seen more of since we've been in this new world that we're living in right now is math in colored chalk on the sidewalks, and that the kids are going out and they're doing different things. And you can, as I walk around the neighborhood, I can see problems. I can see hopscotch boards that people have put numbers in and done different things with, So to get it off that traditional, oh my gosh, I've got 20 minutes to do this worksheet and be done, the examples that Tim brought up and with sports and music and so forth, it just makes math real and not some sort of abstract kind of chore I've got to get done.
Yeah.
So true, Anne. I love your examples, Tim. I know in my own house, I have three of my own children, and they all have different levels of their engagement in math. My two oldest love math. They're number people. They're those math teachers that just love that math exists in the world. But my youngest doesn't necessarily feel that way. And her transformation in math happened when we engaged in Dungeons and Dragons. No joke. Dungeons and Dragons. We started doing D&D and we invited her into the storytelling. So this is a really cool role-playing game. For those of you guys that are listening, you can do a deep dive in it, or you can kind of just lightly, oh, there's a dice there. So she wanted to make sure that a dungeon master was making sure that they were adding up her points okay for the different decisions that happen. So it's a dice-based game that is all based on points. And this really transformed her enthusiasm for keeping track of numbers and gaining those experience points. And now she loves math. She's out there with the sidewalk chalk teaching me that Common Core math, which I have no idea as a science teacher. I tried to show her how to, I was like, you carry the one, and she's telling me something about something else. I don't know, moving things over and stacking them and restacking. And she's out there with the sidewalk chalk, all excited about this because she was interested in our storytelling through D&D and wanted to be involved in that experience as a family. And she was captivated. And that takes it right back to what you said, Leah, about math describes almost everything around us. And as humans, there are things in this world that we like and that we're passionate about. And the math exists in all of those things, whether that's in the kitchen, baking, or maybe that's at the piano or at the strings of your guitar, or maybe that's in the sequence of programming language or in the strokes of your paintbrush. It's everywhere. So once you realize that math is just a way to describe the things that you love, I think that's a transformational moment for the learner when they're like, oh, in my science class, these kids take math all throughout. They come into 8th grade, I teach physics. And we do a whole section on rocketry. And we do Newton's laws and how things are moving and some marble challenges. And they're seeing the patterns that they learned in their math class. They're seeing them in real life in their experiments, and they get super excited. Oh my gosh, Dr. Figueroa, we did this in math class. It's the same experiment. We did this. We changed the speed and we figured out how long it would take to go. We did this. Like, yes. I never thought we'd use math like that. Well, yes, it's everywhere. It describes what's happening around us. It's super exciting. I have some other kids that are really into fitness and, measuring their heart rate and their kilojoules and their, nutrition. It's all math. So for those of us that think we're afraid of math, we probably just need to look at what we love and realize there's math inside. Well, that was a long one, but I got excited about sharing that story.
Love that people get excited about math. I also think that there's a motivating point in math too. I think about what we talked about on Monday for World Oceans Day, and what percentage of the ocean has been explored. So to any young person who's thinking about what their interest in the ocean, you can look at what percentage is it, Dijon?
Yeah. That we've explored, less than 4%.
So there's 96% of the ocean that we can still explore. If I'm a kid who's interested in the ocean, I see that's excitement.
That's a lot.
Yeah, numbers can offer real motivation about things as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I love the fact that there's the 1% of the water on the planet. That's what we all share to drink. That's a great number right there.
Yeah. Tim, I wonder if you talk for a minute. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say very quickly, listening to Dejana tell that story about how her kids were just talking about how, oh my gosh, that's what we learned in math. I have to believe that their math teacher must have come up and given you a big hug at the end of the day, because that's a wonderful, wonderful story. So thank you for sharing that. Leah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was actually going to ask Tim to share a story because I repeat this story constantly, but it's so much better when it comes directly from you, Tim, about Masterpiece Theater. I love that project, and I don't think that there's a problem in repeating that story.
Right. Well, I'll apologize for people who have heard this before. This was a game that we came up in my classroom. In my 18 years, one of the things I always tried to do was make a game whenever I could if not for the actual lesson itself, at least for a review, so that the kids could practice it going forward, so it wouldn't be just something that was in the past that we were done with and they could forget about. So what we did every week on Friday afternoon for the last hour of the day is we would do Mathphobia theater. And this is integrating drama into math instruction. But the good news is the teacher does not need to act or direct. The kids are doing all the work. What I would do is I would fix myself a cup of tea, and I would, as I'm stirring my tea, I'd explain to the kids, all right, I want you to take 1 minute with your team. And we do the little table clusters in the classroom. We have 5 kids or 6 kids at each little cluster. I say, now talk to your team, your cluster, and figure out what was the main thing we did this week for math. And they would have a minute to discuss. And when I'm done stirring my tea, I say, okay, what do you think? And, usually we get a consensus on the one big thing we were really pushing on, maybe long division with decimals or rounding to the nearest 10 and the nearest 100. So then I say, all right, now you've got 25 minutes to prepare a short sketch or play, maybe 1 to 2 minutes long. Don't make it too complicated. But what we're going to do is I expect you to work together as a team. I want to see a story that clearly features that one thing we did for math this week in context, in a story. And you're going to share it with the class in 25 minutes. You may begin now. And then I sit there. And of course, the first time you do it, there's complete pandemonium because the kids are in a panic. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And one of the things about the arts, by the way, since 2-bit circus is all about STEAM, you have to allow for the possibility of failure. Anytime you're bringing the arts to a project, failure is an option. And this is one of the reasons so many teachers really are not comfortable with it, because they don't want to see anything fail in their classroom. A lot of teachers are perfectionists, which is okay. But you have to allow for the fact that some of the kids are going to have a train wreck, especially the first time. But eventually, if you do it every Friday afternoon, what happens over time is they get more confident, they get more organized, they learn teamwork, which, by the way, is an important life skill that we don't teach enough. And so you have a very short time frame, and anything in the class that they want to use as a prop is okay with the permission of the owner. So finally, it's showtime, and so you finish the week with the kids getting to see 4 or 5 or 6 little stories about the math operation that they did this week. And I'll share my favorite example of the kids doing Mathphobia theater. We were doing long division with decimals, particularly in the context of money. So, the 5 kids are ready to do their thing, and just a very quick little sketch where a kid is walking across the classroom, he's crossing the street, the other kids have found a big box that some books came in. And it's their van. They're pretending they're driving a van, and they're screeching around going way too fast, and they hit him, and he falls over, and he does a great death scene. He's dying. And the kids get out of the van to check him. Is he okay? No, he's dead. He's dead. Check his wallet. Hey, there's nearly $100 in here. How are we going to share it? And they say, well, how can we? So, wait a minute. Long division with decimals. And one of them runs to the board and starts doing the algorithm, the way that you guys and I all learned it when we were kids. We've got another kid doing it with the Singapore method, which eventually became Common Core with a lot of stuff nailed onto it. And meanwhile, a third kid is telling it the story in words. So you see, if we take these $20 bills, there's 4 $20 bills and 4 kids. So that's the easy part. Everybody gets one of those, and they're counting out little pretend money that they made. And while the kid on the floor is just still dying because he's having fun with that. And the whole class was just, they had tears coming down their face. They were laughing so hard. And what I love about it is, number one, it's zero work for me because I'm lazy. I like to sit there and drink my tea or whatever. And so if a teacher doesn't like to act or direct, they don't have to. You're just sitting there watching. You're only there as a moderator if there's a fight. But the best part is the kids are doing their own review of the math content in context. And next Monday morning, when we get back to school, I don't have to reteach anything from the previous week because they're still talking about it. So that's what we call masterpiece theater.
I guess the cultural piece could be taught at another time about the killing people and taking their money. But really, that part of it, you can bet that those kids are never going to forget decimals, the long division of decimals, because it's that you touch on so many emotions and so many senses creating that they will recall the play, which then recalls all the other elements of it.
In fact, I had two girls one time who had been in my class in third grade, and I went to their fifth grade culmination before they went off to middle school. And they came up and they said, "Mr. Griffin, I want you to know we had a lot of fun in your classroom, but you didn't really teach us anything." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" Well, you were supposed to teach math, but we didn't learn any math from you. We learned math by doing all those projects that you gave us and all those games that we played. We learned that stuff ourselves. And we didn't learn any science from you. We learned all about the solar system from that coloring book that you had us make for the first graders. And and when my friend was having math, you sent her to tutor the second graders in math. And so, and of course, that's how it should be. If I'm there as a moderator and they don't think they're learning it from me, all the better. That's a huge win.
It's a great story. Great lesson in teaching whatever the subject is that you're teaching. But it's remarkable. And we all know that the best way to learn something is to have to teach it. So to get your students to teach other students is perfect. It's just perfect. Yes, I agree with Dejana. I think this needs to be a regular TV series, Masterpiece Theaters. We need to see that. That's just marvelous.
It's something that I talk about whenever we do professional development because there's no cost involved. There's no need for extra budget. The only thing those children need is what they studied that week and a little imagination.
Yeah.
And the ability, I think also then your Monday is yours again because they're not going to forget that. You don't need to review as much on Monday morning.
Yeah. And the key is and that's actually maybe the most important thing about doing that activity in the classroom is give the kids almost enough time and no special equipment. Because that way they have to really focus on the content. I can tell you as a teacher, if we could get rid of the big school play, that is one of the first things I would get rid of if I were a principal at a school. We should be doing drama all the time, but little quick projects so the kids don't have time to get all involved in the costumes and the props and all the stuff that that's not what drama is about. Drama is about storytelling.
So what would you say, Tim, in terms of like teaching at home and parents? Is this something that parents could implement at home?
Depends on how many kids you've got. But what you can do is take the same philosophy to whatever it is that you're doing. So what I would say is, if your kids are, I'll give you an example that we're doing right now. I went to the farmer's market here in La Cañada on Saturday, and they've got these fantastic fresh berries. And I got a big case of them, and I came back, and my nephews and my son all want milkshakes, where we use ice cream and the berries and a little bit of vanilla and so on. So what I tell the kids is I say, well, I've got this conference this afternoon. We can do that, but you're going to have to macerate those berries. And they're like, well, what? Okay, well, you cut the strawberries into quarters, and then for each pint of strawberries that you're going to do, you're going to need 1.5 tablespoons of vanilla extract. Which, by the way, I taught the kids how to make. It's easy to do. And then you're going to think about, okay, this much ice cream, this much fruit, and so on. Make sure that you have enough to share with the grown-ups, because of course they're going to say, oh, I couldn't possibly, but you know that once the blender's going right, oh, can I have some of that?
Can we go back a minute? Did you say you taught them how to make vanilla extract?
Yeah, that's easy.
Well, I need that math class.
Well, you don't even really need math for that. All you need is some vodka and some vanilla beans.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all it is.
Please share that in the chat.
Yes, so this is math and chemistry.
If I don't know if you guys want to talk about booze, but I took some classes in bar crafting a while back, and we make our own limoncello and triple sec and so on. And that is all math and measuring, but it's not hard.
I think we should dedicate a show to that. You give us a materials list in advance and give us some guidelines, and that's our Friday show.
Exactly. I was going to say it's a Friday for sure. We're trying to let the parents feel supported in this. One of the ways they have to be supported is the end of the week has to have some celebration.
Fine.
But Tim's so right. I've learned with a lot of the parents now doing math with their kids, the notion of cooking is just a huge way to teach math and make it fun and do that. And whether it's cooking or bartending or whatever, but to pull those concepts together, because it makes it real. And there's a bonus at the end when you're done.
Exactly. A successful project is yummy. Or tasty, depending on the drink. So what about the kids who come in with I just can't do math. Math is not me. And it's not just kids. I work with folks who start sentences with I'm just not a math person.
I'll tell you one thing. I was reading a study in some article about educational psychology and looking at things that raise the affective filter, and that's a fancy way of saying this makes me nervous. The third, and they looked at for grown-ups, what are the scariest things in terms of, just a measurable increase in heart rate, blood pressure, skin tension. The third scariest thing is math. It only comes in behind, death is number 2. Number 1 is public speaking.
Interesting.
That's for grown-ups. It scares them. So when a kid tells me, oh, I'm just no good at math, I can't do math, I say, well, what do you like? What do you like to do? Well, I like soccer. I said, oh, okay, really? Well, are you good at it? And well, yeah, I'm really good. Well, how do you know?
Right.
How do you know you're good
That's a good one. That's a good one.
That's right back to the beginning of this conversation about how finding that child's interest. And I suppose that person's interest, because the same could be said of adults. So I think we're more about supporting the adults and educating the kids. But there are some of the things that we're learning about ourselves as we go through this are important to challenge. It was math that kept me from going back to college for 30 years. And when I finally decided that I was going to go back, and I just said to myself, I am just going to hold my nose and do it, get through it. And then to get there and actually like it. And it's like I've been avoiding something my whole life that turned out to be such a pleasure.
One of the things I had read early on is that leads to this math phobia that we're talking about is that in the early grades and probably into the middle grades, the way that we test students on math and the way that it is a timed test. And for a lot of students, it's that, oh my gosh, I've got to get this done in the next 5 minutes and I can't get that done, and I don't have time to really think it through and do some of the wonderful things that Tim described, in getting that done. And I think, Leah, by the time you went back to university, it finally had some relevance for you, and that allowed you to get over that. But yeah, we need to look at how we really assess that. I love Tim's end of the week assessment. I think that's just fabulous.
Well, I want to take this moment to say thank you, Tim, and thank you, Anne, and thank you to everyone at home who's been with us, or if you're watching this at some point in the future. We want math to be fun for everyone. Dejana, do you want to say goodbye to the folks?
All right, you guys. Wow, this half hour went by so quick. What a great discussion. I'm feeling a little math powerful today, and I hope you are too. So go out there and find the math in what you love. I'm Dr. Dejana. I'm here with Dr. Leah. We're here with Teachers for Teachers. That's you, moms and dads. We'll see you next time.
So good to see y'all.
Take care.
Thank you.